Welcome back. Our South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has returned in Nene to the Finance Ministry in a cabinet reshuffle on Monday that added new faces and removed some ministers allied to his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. Zuma fired Nene as Finance Minister in December 2015, replacing him with unknown parliamentary backbencher Van Rooyen. He was then forced to sack Van Rooyen and reappoint a previous Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, 4 days later after the RAND collapsed. Gordhan, who was fired by Zuma last March, was also reappointed to the cabinet, handed the key public enterprises department, which oversees around 300 state-owned firms, including loss-making South African Airways and cash-strapped power utility Eskom. Well, let's get a quick reaction to that from Professor Patrick Bond of the School of Governance at the Wits University in South Africa. Good afternoon, Prof. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Wonderful to be with you and the viewers.
So tell me, was it a surprise to you South Africans that Nene came back and Gigaba out as finance minister?
Yes, actually, in interviews, Nene, who has been having sort of directorships in the financial world, and he was also recently the head of school at the Wits University Business School, he actually expressed his own surprise and his reticence, his unwillingness to take this job until the new president, Cyril Ramaphosa, twisted his arm. And I'm sure he had such misgivings because the budget is in bad shape and the ratings agencies are just peering over his shoulder. The Moody's is about to give what could be another junk rating. However, it looks like, well, with Ramaphosa having pushed Zuma out 15 months early, and with Nene replacing Maluti Gigaba having been put in after Pravin Gordhan was fired last April in a very transparent attempt by the Zuma plus Gupta network, to take, as we say, state capture of the Treasury. And so Gigaba has been moved back to Home Affairs, and he's under quite a lot of suspicion for having originally put the Gupta-linked directors onto the boards of major state-owned enterprises. It's quite a mess, and I think what Ramaphosa is doing is very gingerly trying to put some of the more explicit neoliberal and big business supporting ministers back into positions, including Pravin Gordhan as head of state enterprises. So the markets are fairly confident now. They were expecting this sort of move to get rid of the Zuptas, but many of them did remain, and the cabinet reshuffle is seen as rather disappointing, especially because of the new deputy president, David Mabuza, seen as being himself tainted by very extreme levels of corruption and thuggery in his prior job in one of the provinces.
All right, Professor Bond, this cabinet reshuffle comes a few days after the budget presentation. You did mention that. Of course, that saw the VAT raised after 25 years. Do you think Nene will drive this budget of Gigaba, or do you think he will try to tinker with it?
Oh, I think he's probably going to go along with two or three of the most controversial things until there is friction, and it will probably come from organized labor. So, for example, there was a VAT increase. Our value-added tax is 15% now, a 1% increase that will disproportionately hit low-income people. There is a protection insofar as what appears to be an above-inflation grant increase for the poorest. There are about 17 million grants that are given out. They're not much, about $35 a month is the main one. And that, unfortunately, though, is above normal inflation, but not food inflation for poor people. So there's going to be some fighting on that front, as well as major cuts to social spending across the board, especially national to municipal financing. And as you may have heard, we've had thousands of protests going on every year called service delivery protests by poor people, angry that government isn't delivering affordable electricity or roads or schools, clinics, water and sanitation. And in some parts of the country that gets extremely intense, where municipal property is destroyed. So I would predict it's a short honeymoon for both Nhlanhla Nene, who knows that these budget cuts hurt, and also for President Ramaphosa. The only budget increase that we saw that was substantial was for students, and I'm biased working at the university, but the students have been protesting for free higher education, and 90% of them will get it, those that have family incomes under about 30,000 US dollars a year. And that means that we've had to find fairly quickly over $1 billion to add to the university budget. And that is where many of the, let me say, big business and neoliberals who should be encouraged by more middle-class university graduates, they're not really willing to see that sort of a big budget increase that was unbudgeted. It was really Jacob Zuma's last gasp to have his ex-wife, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the former AU chair, elected last December. And it nearly worked because it was a very close election. But that's something that this next finance minister, Nene, will have to deal with, which is a legacy that there will be free tertiary education for nearly all South Africans. It's a great victory for this student movement that has been bubbling away for the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, just a quick one before I let you go, Professor Bond. Looking at the budget that was presented by Gigaba, and of course with this, the changes in the cabinet, do you think this will actually appease rating agencies like Moody's and stop further downgrade of the country's ratings?
Well, these are the 3 big brothers. We have 3 small brothers that were living in Saxonwold. They've been chased out of the country, the Gupta brothers. The 3 big brothers are in New York, and you know them very well in Nigeria, and you know that they get particularly wicked when you have a high foreign debt. So 2 of those 3 gave South Africa junk ratings to punish Jacob Zuma for firing Pravin Gordhan last year. Now, they could move back up above junk, but I think the big question is, will Moody's at least keep stable or maybe even give a positive outlook? Our dilemma, though, like yours, is our foreign debt, which stands now at $160 billion, will have some tranches coming due early next year. And that's going to be for President Cyril Ramaphosa running an election campaign in 2019 for the African National Congress, one of the most difficult times, because that's when the credit rating agencies are at their most potent, and that's when the finance minister feels the pressure to cut social programs, and then the anger rises.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Professor Bond.
Thank you.
Professor Bond is of the School of Governance at the Wits University in South Africa. And it's on that note that we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwabu.